Hey guys, Bradley here from Armour Detail Supply, and today we have another fun project for us. So we actually have one of our great employees' cars here, Jeff. This is his BMW, and what we're going to be doing on this car is basically taking you through a process that you can recreate that we have to do on this vehicle to basically recoat your car after a few years, because one of the biggest questions we actually get is, okay, I know how to coat the car, but what do I do once it starts to fail, or once I start to see areas that are declining, or maybe you have a customer's car that comes back and they're just not taking care of it the way they should. What do you do to basically, what's the process to reapply that coating? A lot of people don't really understand. So what we're gonna do is basically take you through the process, because that is exactly what this car needs. So a little backstory on this car. About little over 3 years ago, Jeff himself coated this car. He did coat this car with a professional only product that was supposed to last 9 years. It was a 2-layer system, and it hasn't lasted 9 years. We're about 3 years in, and basically for the last year or so, this thing has been mostly just surviving off of spray sealants, mostly ceramic spray sealant, Amplify. That's really what's just been kind of chugging this thing along, keeping that hydrophobics. There's some areas where the coating is still doing halfway decent. Some areas he's actually, kind of upped the coating, 6-12 months or so, like reapplied because it was so bad. There's a little bit of water spotting. Obviously there's some contamination. There's some swirl marks, because over time you're gonna induce some swirls. That's kind of how it goes. This is a true used car. It's not something that sits in a garage. It's not driven a whole ton. I mean, it probably does, 15, 20, 25,000 miles a year. It's not like a 100,000 mile a year type of car. But it is outside 24/7 in the Florida heat, under the Florida UV, under trees. It is getting beaten on. And to get 3 years out of a coating, even though it was supposed to last about 9 years, that is pretty normal, here in Florida, depending on how the car is maintained, and things like that. So, this thing was maintained pretty well. Obviously it's Jeff, so he's washing this car at least every 2 weeks, but usually every week, honestly. So for it to degrade that fast is a little bit surprising, but not unheard of, because Florida here is pretty rough on coatings, and I just don't think this was the best coating, even though it was a rated Pro 9-year coating that was a 2-layer system. So we're going to take you guys through the process of basically getting this thing back dialed in, getting it back fresh to where it was 3 years ago when he coated it, and we're going to go through that whole process with you on this one. So stick around. It's going to be a long video, so grab your popcorn. We're going to have a lot of information going on in this video. Alrighty, so first step of the kind of decon prep phase is obviously the wheels. As always, we are extremely fortunate here that these wheels were coated fairly recently, I think 8 months or so ago. So this process is not going to be full detailed like prep for new coating process, because these don't need it. If you need that, refer back to our GT4 series where I go over that process. So I've got a lot of chemicals here. And the nice thing about this, that it's a fairly well maintained car. The wheels are coated. It's been 2 weeks or so since its last wash. The wheels are still really clean. There's no crazy browning on the tires. So I don't need a lot of these chemicals. And that's the thing. We might offer all of these, but sometimes you only need them when you're doing that really harsh clean. And from there, you can really get away with some basic stuff. So I'm going to use my beads to help top up the wheel coating, because we are kind of in the process of kind of rejuvenating. So we'll top up the wheel coating with the beads. But I'm actually not going to use, I'm going to put these to the side, wheel cleaner, tire cleaner. I'm not going to touch them because I don't need them. This is more of a maintenance style clean. So I'm actually just going to stick with our clean APC. This is usually my go-to kind of maintenance cleaner because it's just very light. I don't need a lot for this. The wheels are coated. I don't need anything too crazy. I would, use the actual wheel cleaner at least every couple months or so to really break down that brake dust. But for just your normal maintenance type stuff, clean is perfect. This is diluted 4:1 at like our strongest dilution. I'm going to go ahead and pre-spray just to kind of get get the you know, the wheel all you know, rinsed off. And as you can see, I mean, the wheels are super hydrophobic. I believe each wheel on this car has a different coating that, you know, we're doing for a different experiment. One of them has ours, the other 3 has something else, just as a long-term test. But from there, I'm literally just going to spray the whole wheel down with our clean APC, because again, this is really all we need for these wheels. Once they're coated, it's really nice. You don't need a whole lot of chemicals. I mean, realistically, I probably don't even need this. I could probably go with just our like decon soap even, but this just gives you a little bit extra cleaning power. Helps with the tires, helps be able to, you know, get in the wheel wells too. I'll still pre-spray this clean all up in the wheel wells and be able to get that all nice and clean. And that'll help break down some of that dirt and grime. And then from there, I will still do my favorite process, which is foaming everything down with the decon soap, just to allow you know, some nice foam and really you know, give you some lubrication and stuff while you're washing. So as you can see, super thick foam from the decon soap. And again, that's going to aid in even more cleaning power, because, you know, decon soap is a fairly strong soap, as well as all this lubrication for your media. I do have a couple, I think like 1 ounce or so in the bucket of decon soap. Just again, giving you some lubrication for your brushes, as well as helping clean them out when you you know, dump them in the bucket. So from there, we're just using our slew of Detail Factory brushes. I've got the mini wheel brush here, which is perfect for this. Fits all in between these spokes. Helps me get all behind the caliper, all into the back wheel well. These mini Detail Factory brushes are super convenient for that. I find there's only really a couple wheels that these don't fit into, so that's just really nice to be able to get into everything. And then these, you can even, you know, kind of go through and hit in between these spokes in here too, that are hard to reach with your fingers or a mitt. From there, I can grab my little wheel mitt for my hand and go through and do a full clean all up in there and get everything as clean as possible. Again, these are coated, so I'm not having to go too crazy here. A fresh coating makes all the difference on some wheels. And again, I think having your wheels coated is honestly having, you know, better than having your paint coated, because it just, you know, really speeds up the process and makes the process a whole lot easier, especially if you have performance brakes. From there, just nice scrub on the tires. Again, these didn't have any crazy browning. They didn't, you know, these are maintained often. They're used, you know, Tire Plus is used on them often, so there is no crazy browning. We're just giving them a nice superficial clean there. And that is really the process. It's, you know, just as simple as that. I'm going to give this a nice rinse off, and then we can keep going on with the rest of our sets of wheels. Rinse up in that wheel well area really well, get all that clean out. Knock all that road film and dirt and grime out of the wheel wells. And as you can see, crazy hydrophobic still from the wheel coating. And then just as a maintenance item, we're gonna go through with our beads, just a couple sprays. Like to do this every month or so on a coated set of wheels. Really just boost that protection. Because again, your wheels are your most abused part of the car. They're seeing all that dirt and grime, brake dust. So keeping that topped up with a fresh layer of beads is just gonna extend that wheel coating and keep that wheel cleaning process super easy. So that's it. We're gonna rock and roll and do the rest of the wheels, and we'll come back to you guys once we have those wheels done and ready to start with the rest of the decon process. So now we're getting into the actual decon process. Basically this process is going to be almost identical to how you would prep a car for your standard coating. There's not really much of a difference here. You're going to go through with a full decon wash. What that's going to entail is basically using, our decon soap, heavy, high alkaline soap, to break down, any sort of spray sealants. Because again, this thing has basically all these hydrophobics you're seeing here are literally from our ceramic spray sealant and our amplify. Because like 5-6 months ago, this thing was almost pretty much completely flat. So it's literally just been surviving from those spray sealants. So to basically try to break all that down, go through with your 2-bucket wash. Generally I'm putting about 1 ounce or 2 in the buckets, and then I'm doing usually when I'm doing a decon soap wash, I'm going to do probably 3 ounces into full foam cannon to get more of that kind of degreasing, kind of sealant stripping power out of the decon soap, and wash it that way. And then you're going to go into, once you're finished with the actual bucket wash, hand wash, everything like that, you're gonna go into your iron remover. I like to obviously spray the iron remover on the surface. I mean, you guys have seen my process before. I like to spray it on, give it some time to work, and then I will spray on decon soap or shampoo plus, whichever one you really want to use. It doesn't matter at that point. And I will basically clay it with the iron remover and the decon soap on there. It just gives you more lubrication, more work time with the iron remover too, because the soap's there, and that sort of deal. And then you're gonna basically rinse it off. At that point, you're good to go. You've got it fully deconned. You've got the iron remover broken down. You've got the the contamination and things like that off the surface. So you're pretty much good to go there. And then you just really just pull it in wherever you're pulling it in, dry it off, and you're good to go. So I just did my pre-rinse, and now I'm just foaming it down. Again, I've got 3 ounces of decon soap in this foam cannon. You're gonna get absolutely insane foam, great cleaning power, insane slickness. Decon soap is a super slick soap, especially when you're using it at this concentration, which is really nice for the wash process. So luckily today, in the past video on the GT4 series, I was in like peak direct sun. I think we were doing it like 11-12 o'clock, so it was really bright and sunny outside. Right now it's a little later in the day. Sun's kind of gone behind the trees, which is nice. So I have a lot more working time. In that video I was kind of fighting the sun and having to rinse stuff off. Here I'm not going to worry about it. I can wash the whole car because I'm in more of a shady, lighter environment, and not have to worry about the decon soap drying, not having to worry about the iron remover drying and all that. So this process will just be super easy. And again, you're just gonna work top down. Don't change your normal wash process top down. As you guys know, I like to leave like your front and back bumpers, lower rocker panels for last, because those are generally the dirtiest parts of the car. I'll hit all the top end surfaces, do small sections at a time, usually about a panel. I'll work like half of a hood, half of a roof, flip my mitt, work half of a hood, and then go back to my bucket. And I can just feel this thing is so contaminated. And that, also plays a factor in, the fact that the coating broke down so fast, is because, again, that contamination, when left, is going to start eating the coating, or you're going to get so much contamination that realistically you're just like, the contamination is just masking the coating, and the coating can't do what it wants to do because there's contamination that's sitting on top of it. So this thing probably could have benefited a lot from decontaminations, clays and iron removers along the way of it getting to here. But at this point it's definitely ready for just a full rejuvenation, quick polish, and basically just reapplying the coating. I do want to talk about basically, this is like your kind of full, like you're just ready for a whole new coating kind of process. Again, we do have other processes and other products that can work if really you're just like, you know, I'm okay with it, I just want to kind of help my coating string along for another couple years, which is totally fine if that's what you want to do, then you can just kind of follow a more decon process and go into like our PHOBIC spray coating and just kind of lay that on top of your existing coating. But realistically, you know, again, this car, it's just in such rough shape, you know, just from the coating just degrading over time, how it lived its life, even though it was, well, you know, fairly well maintained. It's really just ready for a whole new process, and it gives us a chance to make a really good video showing people, you know, one of our most kind of asked questions, which is, you know, like, what do I do when my coating starts to die, or what do I do when I need to, you know, reapply it, or really how do I know when it needs to be reapplied? And that's kind of exactly what we're showing you here. Is, you know, once you get into the point where a lot of your areas are dying, you've got crazy contamination, you might have some water spots, you've got some, you know, swirl marks, things like that. You know, that's where you kind of make the decision, all right, I'm just gonna spend a weekend, spend a couple days, recorrect the car, you know, repolish the car. We're not gonna do any crazy correction on this thing. We're just gonna give it a nice quick polish to kind of bring out the, you know, gloss, bring out, you know, the, you know, basically like deep clean the paint, you know, scar or, you know, slightly remove the original coating that was here so that a new coating can bond, get out any of that water spotting, get any, you know, light swirling and stuff out, and then, you know, we're going to be good to go. So again, just follow your normal wash process for this. And I just go panel by panel, super gently, not cause any more damage, even though we are going to polish, but just keep your wash process the same as what you're used to. That way you keep that process and don't get mixed up when you go to actually maintain the car and end up doing a bad process that then scratches the car up, or, you know, what have you. And again, I think we'll see a big difference here after this decon soap wash. We're going to see that the hydrophobics definitely fall off a lot from what you originally saw, because again, it was just kind of strung along with the sealants and the detail sprays. I mean, basically every wash you was putting Amplify on. Every 2 washes, 3 washes, putting on a layer of ceramic spray sealant. So that's really all you were seeing. So now I've got everything washed other than the front bumper, rockers, rear bumper. Typically I'll go rear bumper first, but again, whichever makes the most sense for you. Hit the rear bumper here. I like to leave these till last because again, they're just the dirtiest parts of the car. Even though we're doing a 2-bucket wash, just doing everything we can to minimize swirls. Then I can flip the thing over, hit the rocker, get under the car as well. Don't just be one of those people that gets just like the side of the rocker that you can see, get all the way underneath. Now we're gonna make sure we go really nicely into the grit guard there, get all that dirt and grime off, really rinse it out, make sure we got a nice fresh pad. I go hit this rocker over here. And then now, front bumper. All right, you will notice throughout this video, these headlights are very yellow, and that kind of shows you the abuse and the life that this poor car has lived. So again, the UV in Florida is not kind to materials on your car. And that just is a depiction of exactly what it'll do and what this paint and this coating has endured. But these, we're not going to touch these in this video. The paint's like actually like flaking off. So he's got some new ones coming, so they'll get replaced, and we'll protect them with probably some coating and PPF at that time. I gotta be really careful on this front bumper because it's literally held together by zip ties, or what we like to call drift stitches. So just being really careful there. We'll have to be really careful. We probably won't be able to polish much of this front bumper just to be safe, so we don't damage it anymore. Alrighty, so there we go. You've got your whole 2-bucket wash done. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a thorough rinse. Again, I worked the whole car at one time because I'm able to. You know, I'm in a little bit more of a shaded area today, so I'm not as worried about the sun baking that decon soap. So I got plenty of time to work. I'm not in a rush today, which is nice. You know, working against the sun, it's possible. It's not always the funnest experience. So here I can take my time a little bit. Mostly just looking to get most of the, you know, the soap off, because again, I'm about to spray iron remover on here, and I'm about to, you know, spray it again with foam. I'm just kind of trying to get if there's any dirt or anything caught in this soap that I've like dislodged during the wash process, just trying to get most of that rinsed off. But don't go for like 100% rinse here. We're just looking to get most of the soap off, get any of that dirt off. And I can already see a lot of the areas are starting to flatten out from that decon soap. You know, removing that amplify, removing some of that ceramic spray sealant. You know, this back trunk's pretty much completely flat now, where it was beating a lot before. Tops of the doors, you know, and quarter here, starting to flatten out. So that's what we want to see. You know, we're breaking down that protection that was just kind of holding this thing over, and really just exposing the true surface and exposing what the coating, you know, if it is still there, which, you know, it is on the surface level, just not being hydrophobic, really just exposing that and being able to see the true performance of what's actually there. So from there, now we're ready to pre-treat with our iron remover. I love to have it in, again, the pump sprayer. It's just really easy. I'm not sitting there. You know, the press-all bottles make it easier than a regular bottle, but again, this, you know, with the iron remover, you're using a lot of product, so it's just easier to just spray this, you know, with a pump sprayer, and you're just finely misting everything onto the surface. You don't need to soak it, really just giving a quick mist. And again, I'll probably use a little under 16 ounces of iron remover or so on this car. Nothing crazy. I mean, to some people that might be crazy, but the way this works, you want it to be able to have time to, you know, and you need the active on the surface to actually do something. A lot of times when you're just using it as a clay lube, there's not enough active for it to actually break down the iron remover. So you're just really using it as lube and not even breaking down the iron. I mean, it might help a little bit, but it's definitely not doing what this process, you know, should or could. So there we go. I have that all sprayed down with the iron. I'm going to refill my foam cannon here. Get some more decon soap in here. Again, you know, at this point, you don't need to go crazy with how much decon soap you want. You're really just using it for lubrication. Fill this up real quick. Water. So I usually won't put 3 ounces in here at this point. Give me some space to actually put the soap. Just do a couple squirts, maybe an ounce. Ounce and a half, you know, probably an ounce and a half is in there right now. That's really all you need. You're just looking for some foam to get on the surface, lubricate, and you know, give you some more working time for the iron remover. So iron remover is dwelling. It's dwelled for a minute and a half now, and I can go ahead and just foam over with our decon soap. And again, you could use Shampoo Plus during this process if you wanted to. You could use really any soap. You could use a cheaper soap if you want. I just already had decon soap out, so it's just easy for me to just hit it with decon soap. And it's also, you know, the clay process is going to give me even more of a chance to allow the sealants and stuff to break down. You're basically doing another application of decon soap. So it's giving you, you know, more chance for those coatings or those, you know, the sealants and detail sprays to break down. And get that broken off the surface. So there we go. Switch over to my normal mitt, or normal mitt, my normal wand here, so I'm ready to go. And then in my bucket, I've had this kind of marinating and sitting the whole time. So we're using the Rag Company clay scrubber, my preferred clay media, because it has a nice sponge that you can, keep squeezing and get more and more lubrication from, and it also has the Jersey bug scrubber here if you have some bugs to scrub off. But this is just a nice form factor. It's my preferred size, kind of the squishiness of it. You can use clay towels and things like that too. I just really like the kind of the foam and the form factor of the bug scrubber. But I'm going to still use my bucket here that I have my wash solution in, and that's going to just be able to give me a chance to rinse out the media as I go through. I'll do about a panel at a time, similar to how you're washing the car, and then come back and just kind of rinse it out. Make sure any of that stuff that it's picking up is getting rinsed out, and you're not just going over the whole car, because again, you could install more marring, more scratching during this process. If this is a brand new clay scrubber, go ahead and break it in on the glass. And I kind of do this anyways, like force of habit, no matter what scrubber. If I've used the scrubber 4,000 times, my process is always windshield first. It's just like habit. So that way, if I ever grab a new one, it just helps me break it in, on the glass, because they do come with a little coating on there to help protect it during like transit and stuff. So breaking it in on the glass and going through the process on the glass helps remove that, breaks it in, so that you're being able to have a good clay surface once you get to the paint. And the clay bar or the clay scrubber, if you're using a synthetic clay like I am, it's more about, oh dude, this thing is so contaminated. You could tell this thing lives under trees. And you'll feel, number one, you'll feel the contamination. I can feel it now. I can already feel this is so much smoother just going over it quickly. But it's all about friction, and not friction in pressure, but friction in speed. So the least amount of pressure and the faster you go, the better. You're gonna reduce the amount of marring. If you start putting pressure behind this, you're really gonna increase your marring potential. And that's not really the way the clay needs to work. You just, it's really just fast movements, low pressure. And you'll feel, you're just gonna feel it get so much smoother. This glass was like sticky. This piece of glass right here, it was rough, sticky. This thing barely wanted to glide. Now it's like, this thing's just gliding smooth as butter. And if I get over there, oh dude, it's like, it doesn't want to move because it's so sticky. So you'll feel the difference. And since we're polishing, I will say you don't need to go like for 100% contamination removal here. We're really just looking to get 90%, 85% off, so that when we go into our polishing process, we're not picking up this contamination and getting in our pad and causing issues with that. And again, the polishing pad also will kind of act like a clay and pick up that stuff. And that's the reason you want to do this first, is because if you don't do it and you just say, screw it, I'm going to go just straight into polishing, you can do that if it's very, very lightly contaminated. But if it's heavily contaminated, it's going to start picking up that contamination. And then you're buffing that into the surface with the polisher, and you get like marring, you're going to get hooks, you're going to get weird, like scratch patterns and things, because you have basically like dirt and grit in your polishing pad. So getting like 80% of this off is, a good process to be able to, just be able to give you a better polishing process realistically. So I'm going panel by panel, and I can see the foam is turning purple in some areas. It's showing me it's breaking down that iron, breaking down that contamination. But I'm going to go through this whole process, clay the whole car, and we will get back once the clay process is finished and just go just as you did washing the car, work top down. At this point, the whole car is clean, so you don't need to like do certain areas before others, really just whatever makes the most sense for you. But I like to just still work top down, work in a comfortable pattern that makes sense. Maybe start on, my process is just, starting with hood, roof, getting the top surfaces done. Then I'll usually pick a fender. I'll start on a fender and I'll just work my way around the car back to that fender. This keeps you super organized so that you're not missing any panels. So yeah, from there, you know, I'm gonna get this all clayed up, get all this contamination off, because boy, does this thing need it. And we will get back to you once I'm ready to rinse this off after the clay process. Alrighty, so we got everything clayed, all the paint, all the glass. This thing is feeling buttery smooth compared to what it was. It was really, really bad. It definitely needed a full, you know, clay decontamination. So now I'm just gonna basically just rinse all this off. Then we're going to, you know, that's kind of finishing your decon, you know, process at that point, you know, the outside work. We're then gonna just pull it inside, and we'll be ready to get into the next process, which is drying, and then we'll get into some taping before we start, you know, getting into our polishing. So we'll get back to you guys once this thing is rinsed off and we get it pulled inside where I can cool down, because it is hot out here. It is so humid today. So now we are inside getting this thing dried up, and since there's minimal protection now left and you're just getting mostly pooling water, I'm going through with our large twist loop towel and just getting the bulk of the water off. Dry, I'm not using any sort of drying aid, because again, you don't need it at this process. And if, you know, I do put a little bit of towel marring or something in, you know, it's not a huge deal, because we're gonna go into a little bit of polishing anyways. So I'm just going through and getting the large bulk of the water off with our large twist loop towel, which will, you know, suck up all the water on this thing, no problem. And what I am gonna do, since I'm gonna go basically right into polishing on this thing, so I need to get into taping. I'm gonna tape off a lot of these rubbers and plastics, especially because they're really, really old on this car, super fragile, so I don't wanna hit them. So I will be basically getting it all dry with our bulk drying towel, and I'm gonna take my Ego blower and just really, really, really blast out all the cracks and crevices, everything like that. That way, when I go into my polishing, I'm not dealing with any, you know, standing water coming out of the cracks and crevices that then, like, you know, make the tape not stick or get into my polishing pad and start flinging around, and, you know, things like that. So just getting all the trims and everything blown out really well, get the door jambs blown out. That way we have a really nice dried car, and I can go into the taping process and not have any issues. So we'll go through, get all that done, and we'll come back to you guys once we are into the taping process. So you guys know I love my Japanese Komoi tape. I know a lot of people asked about this in one of our last videos. So again, really the only place you can get this from here in the USA is Parks Car Care. So this is the Komoi, it's like Kabuki Komoi masking tape, but it's just such a nice tape to use because it's super malleable. It's not super tacky, so it doesn't leave any residue. It's a little expensive, but sometimes paying for that, you know, it's just nice, you know, it's just nice not to have to worry about having crappy tape. The price is worth it. You can order this also on eBay. You can buy like full cases of it if you're a shop, and you can get it direct from Japan, but otherwise it's Japan or Parks Car Care. Eventually maybe we'll have it in our store, but for right now, Parks Car Care is your go-to. As far as taping goes, on this, there's really not a whole ton to tape, especially because we're not going like full bore polishing on this. We're really just doing a light cleanup polish, so I'm not going to be going too crazy. But the main areas I'm going to be taping on this is anywhere that is like plastic or rubber that I just don't want to get polish on. So really on this whole car, it's mostly just on these sides, all these rubber trims. If you can zoom in here, they are very old, very weathered. There's not really much we're going to be able to do for these, unfortunately. We'll try to clean these up with like a little bit of polish separately. But for my main polishing, I do want to tape these off. Because again, they're old, they're fragile. I want to make sure that we don't damage them any further. So I'm going to go ahead and just tape these off. I got my two different sizes here, but for these kind of trims, the 18 millimeter size, I believe, which is like it's like 3/4 of an inch, always seems to work the best for me. It gives you enough coverage without being too heavy. So you can just go through here, and you just, again, you don't need to be Picasso with it, but you want to get some tape on there to cover any of the areas that you basically just don't want to hit with the polisher. And if you're new to polishing and you're new to using a machine, maybe you want to just tape a little bit more. You know, there's no harm in taking a little bit of extra precaution, a little bit of extra time to tape it. You know, you're better off doing that than thinking you can be a hero and not tape, and then having to try to fix some damage that you caused. So that's kind of my process. Is, you know, I know some people preach just like, you know, you don't need tape, or, you know, just do it without it. But, you know, if you can spend 5 minutes up front to save you 15 minutes on the back end of cleaning it up, that's always worth it. Also up here, you can see there's some weird stuff going on. I don't know if you can zoom in here, but these were like, looks like these were painted at one point, or like plastic, powder coated, and then maybe someone like repainted them because they got faded, and now this paint is like chipping off and like starting to degrade. We're not going to be able to do anything about that either, unfortunately, but that's an area that I am going to tape off because that seems like a fragile surface that I do not want to touch. So I'm going to tape that off so that my polisher doesn't hit those in these areas here when I'm doing the roof and the quarter panel, because if you hit that, I think that's going to start flaking paint off, or change the sheen or the finish, because it looks like someone like rattle canned this at some point with a spray paint can. So just going through, and again, just tape off all the rubbers that you think you need, and you know, if you're questioning it, tape it. You know, that's the best process to do. You know, another couple bucks on a roll of tape, so much better than damaging something and, you know, having to reach out to figure out how to fix it. Yeah, we'll get this taped up, and then we'll get into the polishing process. So I just want to show you, again, when I'm saying this trim is really messed up, you can see this is obviously like really oxidized old trim. And then you can see this stuff here, and even over here, where it looks like someone at some point has like almost tried to like hand paint this stuff or something, probably before they sold it. This is unfortunately trim that we're not really going to be able to do too much with. We'll try to clean this up and put some Trim Plus on there. It might darken it a little bit, but since someone has already been here trying to do some crazy hack stuff, unfortunately we're not going to be able to fix that too much. You'd really have to either pull it off and like paint it professionally, or just replace these pieces, unfortunately. But we will tape these off. That way during the polishing process, I don't mess them up even more. Alrighty, so now we are getting into basically the meat and potatoes of this video, which is getting into the polishing process, which is what most people are confused about going into this process, on what needs to be done to basically remove the existing coating and be able to get a new coating on to bond properly. So, you know, I want to start by saying, you know, this doesn't need to be a crazy process, and, you know, it's really dependent on the car too. In this case, I'm going to be basically doing the bare minimum to get the coating to go on and bond properly. I've only got like a little bit of water spotting. And again, we're not going for absolute perfection on this one. If it's been a few years and you've developed some swirls, you've developed some scratches, you've developed some, you know, severe water spots or anything like that, then, you know, take your time at this point to do the type of paint correction that you need, you know, and what you want to basically go for and achieve. But if you're just looking, you know, if you're happy with the car, you know, the finish, but you're just looking to basically be able to get a new coating put on properly and have it bond properly, you really just need to do the bare minimum, what, you know, my guys refer to and what, you know, I refer to as like a buzz polish. So a lot of your standard kind of paint correction practices will go out of the window a little bit. You still want to practice, you know, obviously proper practices, but we're not going to be going crazy, you know, using skin grips and making sure we're getting every, you know, perfect little detail out. We're not going to be, you know, we're going to be working larger sections. We may extend our working areas out. You know, we're going to work a little bit faster, you know, on a buzz polish, you know, what I call on this. really should take me no more than like probably an hour and a half to 2.5 hours to go around the whole car, give it a quick buzz polish, and that's going to be completely enough to remove the existing coating that's on here, or abrade the existing coating enough that a new coating can be applied and bond properly. Again, we don't need to go crazy digging in with really heavy compounds to like fully try to remove the coating that's there. You really just need to polish the surface, to abrade it, to get it to be able to bond a new coating to bond properly. So what I do have is I have my little setup here, and I'm going to go through kind of what I'm using. So I'm using obviously our ShineMate 5-inch, which I'll use for probably 99% of this car. I'll probably very rarely pull out the 3-inch, but I do have my 3-inch Merca here. And then I have a couple polishes. So when you're getting into the polishes that you need for this type of job, it's really kind of your like finishing polishes or medium cut finishing polishes. Something in the middle range gives you a little bit of cut, but a really good finish. Something that you can just use for a one-step. So some of the ones I have here, Koch Chemie F6, a really popular one, P&S Rehab would be great, or I have some Jescar Medium. I know there's tons of other polishes on the market. You could use a Burke medium polish as well. I'm going to go with Koch Chemie F6 just because I've been really loving it lately. But any sort of medium polish will be totally fine. And then pad choice. This, you can really use any sort of pad depending on the paint you're working on. For me in this process though, I do try to stick with a microfiber pad. So these are you can use a microfiber finishing disc, or you can use a microfiber one-step pad. This is a microfiber one-step pad with the orange foam. It's an HDO Lake Country, I believe, a microfiber one-step pad. And that is going to pair perfectly with these medium polishes to get a nice one-step, basically polish on this. But the reason I like to stick with the microfiber is because you get a little bit of that, the fibers really like kind of dig into the surface a little bit more than like the foam does. So I just feel it gets a little bit more like kind of cleaning action and a little bit more going on to remove that coating and abrade it, more to basically be able to get that new coating to stick. So I like to stick with a microfiber pad, for this process. And yeah, basically we're just going to go through and get everything polished, get every area touched with the compound or the polish and the microfiber pad, get this paint looking better. We're not going for perfection again, and yeah, we're going to just go through the process with you guys on the hood and the fender and just showing you kind of how I'm working it. But again, it's not a crazy process. As long as you're working the polish onto the surface, you're gonna it's gonna be plenty enough to get that coating abraded or removed enough for the next coating to be applied. So we're gonna jump onto the hood right now. So I've got my pad primed with the Koch Chemie F6, and now I'm just going to be working my sections. I've placed a couple beads around on the hood. This is like my personal process when I'm doing more of a fast-paced polish, like this bus polish, or just a quicker, finishing polish. I'll put like the whatever amount of product I need for each section. So I'm going to work this hood in 4 different sections. So that's why I've got my 4 different beads. So I'll basically just work a quarter of a hood at a time. Again, because I'm not going crazy for defects or anything like that. I'm really just trying to get the surface polished out, get it looking better, and as well, abrade and remove that existing coating. So I don't, I can work a larger section, so a quarter of a hood, maybe a whole or a half of a fender is about the size that you can work. From there, typical machine speed, whichever you're comfortable with. I'm usually on like 5 or 6 on most machines. A little bit of pressure on, just like your hand pressure on the machine itself. You don't need to go crazy like digging in. And then normal, kind of steady arm movements. Realistically, what you're doing is just working this polish, just do your kind of 3 back and forth passes, 3 to 4 passes. You're good to go. You can move on to the next section, move on to the next section. It should go very, very quickly. So I'm just going to kind of do that process now on this quarter of the hood here.
You can see I'm still doing my overlap. I'm overlapping my sections. I'm still doing fairly smooth, slow arm movements. I've got a little bit of pressure on the machine, nothing crazy. I'm not hammering on it. And I'm just working this polish. And this is kind of your typical one-step, you know, quick finishing polish, you know, process. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. You're just going through. And since I'm not going for crazy heavy defect removal, I can work these larger, you know, sections like this and have no issues. And I've put plenty of product on there, you can see. And, you know, I've got plenty of polish. And that's the nice thing with these like medium polishes, finishing polishes. You can work them pretty long and get great results.
And there we go. I've done that pass, and I can leave that on the surface, and for efficiency purposes for me, I just go right into the next one. So, you know, my pad, you know, obviously blow it out if you need to as you get going. I'll work this whole hood before I even think about blowing out the pad on a process like this. So I'll just go ahead and just kind of pick up my bead like this with my polisher.
Spread it around really quick. And now I'm off to the races, and I can just keep going and look in this next half of the hood. I'm just spreading it around still right now. So now I'll work my actual affected, smooth, medium, you know, medium speed passes. I'm not going crazy fast. I'm not going crazy slow. I'm just giving the polish, and the microfiber's had enough time to actually work. And this, you know, again, you don't need to over sanitize or kind of over obsess over this process if you're just trying to go for, you know, quick cleanup and move the coating. We're really just letting the polish and the pad abrade, remove, and keep them going. And still, you can utilize some of the techniques that, you know, we taught in our,
you know, 5 tips for polishing and things like that too, of making sure you're getting the edges, you know, edging out on the edge, just to make sure you're still getting all that, you know, polish along the edge. So now I'm just going to remove the polish. I mean, typically on a process like this, I would work like the whole hood, maybe even a couple fenders, a couple panels at a time before I wipe off. But just to show you guys, you know, kind of what we're getting. Wipe all this polish off here. And you'll be able to see, maybe not on camera, but between this half the hood and that half the hood, this half is much glossier. This one has a little bit of haze going on just from oxidation stuff over time, all that contamination sitting there. This is much glossier. A lot of those water spots are removed. We got some correction power with you know, some little minor swirls and things, and this is just looking a whole lot better. And this is now a perfectly prepped surface to apply that coating to. So I'll go ahead and work this fender now, just to kind of show you guys that process on a fender. Again, you can just kind of put it on the panel. I'll just do 2 dots here. I'll work this in 2 sections. Pick that up.
You pick that bead up, goes over here. And this panel on the, you know, for this process is small enough that I can just work the whole, basically work the whole panel at one time. Getting that top edge here of the machine. Try to get that edge. Work this main flat area. Getting around this light here. Now on this one, I'm not doing my like soft sections. I'm not really just going like, you know, one direction, really left to right, and I'm just kind of counting my passes going those ways again. So, you know, you don't need to over obsess it. Works the polish until you start to see it go clear and breaking down, and that'll tell you that you've worked, you know, your sections enough. Again, we're not going for crazy correction power. We're just going to clean up the paint, get it glossy again, get that coating removed, and abraded enough for the next
coating to bond properly. And then we can go ahead and wipe that off. And now, I mean, you can see the metallic flake is popping. Super glossy again, none of that kind of oxidation look from all that contamination being on the surface. And, you know, we're back to fresh, you know, fresh paint that is ready to accept a new coating. So as you can see, I mean, that's the process. Within, I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes, we were able to do half the hood and the fender. So we're basically just going to replicate that throughout the whole vehicle. Again, this shouldn't take too much time. Hour and a half, 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours if you work a little slower. Really just kind of work panel by panel and go through the whole car and get every section polished out. And then we'll go from there and get into the panel prep and the coating stages here shortly. Alrighty, so I finished polishing the whole hood, and I do want to talk about like pad usage and blowing out the pad. So on one of these kind of like quick, like more quicker buzz polishes, I'll still blow out my pad, you know, pretty often. So I worked basically the whole hood, which would equal, you know, obviously whole hood. You could probably do like a, you know, or like a fender and a door, and then I'm gonna blow out my pad. So just want to show you guys blowing out the pad. I've just got my little compressor here. I use the little, this new one. I used to use the Air Blaster V2, but they came out the Air Blaster Mini, and these are awesome because it's just super compact. And basically just blowing it out. Because again, these pads are getting gunked with not only the polish that you're using and everything that comes with that, it's getting gunked with any, you know, all the clear coat you're pulling off of the actual clear itself, the old coating that was on there, anything that was on the paint that you're kind of buzzing off to reveal that fresh layer of clear coat is getting caught in this pad. So they're gonna get really gunked up, so you don't wanna just keep working through the whole car with one pad and not cleaning it out. So every panel or two, blow it out, and then every, you know, 3 to 4 panels, I'll actually just take this pad off, grab a whole new one. So I'll go through less pads, you know, doing this kind of quicker polish. I'll probably use 4 or 5 pads through the whole vehicle rather than my normal like 8 or 9 pads for like a really heavy correction. So definitely, you know, keep your pads clean. You're gonna get the better results that way, and you're gonna keep, you know, you get a better finish, get an easier process, and you're not gonna be kind of slinging around all that old material that your pads are picking up. So I wanted to stop real quick because we're encountering something that I know a lot of people have questions about and experience themselves. So on this specific car, we've got these B-pillars that are plastic, but they're smooth plastic, not the textury stuff, and they're like kind of like a semi-gloss, and they get stained, you know, over time, super easy. They also start to oxidize and go like, you know, grayish. And a lot of people will try to even use like our Trim Plus on these, and it doesn't work very well because this is a completely different type of plastic, and especially because it's smooth and semi-gloss. Trim Plus doesn't work that well on these, and you can see these are crazy stained and you know, starting to turn a little hazy. So best practice for these is to actually polish them. And I know a lot of people tell you don't polish plastics, but this plastic, the smooth kind of semi-gloss plastic, you can polish. What I like to use for this is Rehab, because I know it doesn't stain plastic, and just a foam pad. You can see I've already done the other side. It is, you know, it's going to pull off all that kind of oxidation and kind of give you a fresh layer of plastic to work with. So I just do a little bit of polish on there, and then I set up this 50-50 for you guys so I can polish one side and kind of show you the difference. So it doesn't require a lot. Just go through and give it a quick polish over with your 3-inch. Just work it slow. Again, a light polish with a foam pad, so you're not going too crazy, and you're really just kind of buzzing over it to give you a fresh layer of plastic to work with. And that's really all you need to do right there. I can wipe this off, and already you can see it's like back to brand new. And let's just pull this tape line off and show you I mean, look at the difference there. Going from dull, hazy, stained to back to black, fresh, still, you know, very plasticky looking. We didn't increase the gloss, you know, or anything. We're just giving you that, you know, revealing that fresh new plastic surface. So if you guys have that on your car, that is the way to tackle it. Trim Plus is not going to work the best. From now, you can either apply your paint coating that you're putting on the paint, or you can also put Trim Plus over this and it will protect it. But Trim Plus is not going to turn it from this to this. Only polishing will. Alrighty, so we are back. This is actually day 2 for me because we ran out of time with all the other responsibilities that I have here at the business. So we are getting to coating this now. We obviously pulled off all of the tape, so we're good to go there, finished all the paint correction, and we're good to go. I have been panel wiping the car down because that is the next step before we get into the coating. So we're using our panel prep. I have it in a nice press all here, and then I'm using our panel prep towel. I've done already all the top surfaces, and you can see, I just did want to point out, like, you know, look how dirty these towels get. You know, they're gonna get saturated and they're gonna get dirty. So make sure you have quite a few of these on hand because you don't want to keep, you know, kind of pushing all these oils and things that you're picking up around the surface. So just have nice clean towels, have, you know, probably 4 or 5 of them ready for you to go ahead and you know, use on the car. So I'm just going to keep on rocking and rolling and get the panel prep done. This is a very super simple process. So you basically just kind of mist it on the surface. You want a generous amount. You know, give it some time to emulsify. A lot of times I'll just kind of do a, you know, spray a couple panels at a time just to let it kind of work in. And then just take your towel, wipe it on. If you have any built up areas of compound or polish, you can kind of massage those and wipe those a little bit harder, but really the panel prep should take care of most of it. Flip the towel over to your dry side and just buff it to a perfectly streak-free finish. And you'll feel that the paint's gonna get nice and tacky, especially after you polished, and then doing the panel prep, the paint's gonna be really, really kind of squeaky clean. The towel doesn't want to glide. It's exactly what you want to feel. So just kind of go around the whole car, treat everything, treat the glass, treat the plastics, treat the paint. I like to do this in my process 2 times. It's very unnecessary, but my kind of OCD peaks here, and I want to make sure that we get the best bond and I don't have anything, you know, kind of interfering with my coating application. So my process for years has been to just be, you know, just take my time, be careful, and just do this process twice. Again, it's not that I don't, you know, kind of not trust our product to get it up in the first time, and just, if we're going, you know, I'm going to spend a couple hours here putting a multi-year durability coating on, an extra 20 minutes for another round of panel prep is totally worth it. So I'm going to get going around the whole car, and we'll meet back up once we're ready to apply the coating. Alrighty, so you are finished with your panel prep step. So now you're to the fun part. We're applying coatings. So obviously you're gonna, whatever coating you have, that's what you're gonna apply, whether it's ours or another brand. Definitely just follow their instructions, but we will be going over kind of a little bit of the application of ours and just kind of showing you how to do that. So what I have set up is, obviously I'm done with my panel prep and my panel prep towels. I used all 3 of those. I've got our coating set up. So for this one, since we already kind of know this car gets a little bit abused, again, that 9-year coating only lasted like 2 years or so. So we wanted to give it basically the best that we offer. And the best that we offer is going to be obviously our Pro coating. So this is our new Pro version 2 that just came out recently. And then we are going to be topping that, which is an option with our PHOBIC coating. So you can do that as a 2-layer system. And it's literally the best that we offer, best of the best. Putting PHOBIC on top of Pro is like super magical. It just goes on super easy and super glossy, super slick, and just increases that durability. Gives you kind of that sacrificial layer on top to get beat up, so your Pro coating stays fresh. And then you can also just keep using that PHOBIC coating for your like biannual, annual maintenance. So it's just a really nice process there. So I've got our Pro coating with the applicator that comes included that we're going to be using. I've got our PHOBIC coating, and then I have an applicator that we are testing out that are kind of in development with the rag company. It's a thinner circle applicator with a strap that's also reversible, so you still get to use two sides of the applicator. So if you guys see that, that's just kind of something we're working on and I'm trying in the background. We are going to be coating the glass, so I do have our glass coating with its specific applicator, and then I have our signature first wipe towels and second wipe towels. So I have our first wipe pearl weave, thinner nap to kind of break that crust, and then you have the plusher second wipe towel just to kind of buff off, finish, and leave a perfectly clean surface. So we're going to walk you through a full application on a door. I don't want to bore you guys with like me coating the whole car, coating the whole hood. So I'm going to take you through a full application on a full door with the Pro. Then we're going to wait, top it with PHOBIC. So I do want to go over that really quickly because I know a lot of people are going to have questions about like how this whole system works. So you're going to install your Pro as you normally would. If you need full instructions on how to use Pro, go back to our video where we launched it. We have full detailed instructions on how to use Pro, but we'll go over a little bit in this video as well. And then topping it with PHOBIC, realistically you want to wait about an hour between the two coatings. The best application is going to be between 1 to 4 hours. In between that time, they're really going to kind of mesh together. The solvents in the PHOBIC are kind of break the surface of the Pro, and they're going to kind of interlock into one like nice layer of coating that gives you those additional benefits. If you do it after that time, you can still do it. You can do it 8 hours later, you can do it 3 days later, you can do it 2 weeks later, you can do it a year later, and it's going to layer on top and still give you a nice 2-layer system as well. So don't stress on I got to get it done in an hour, I got to get it done in 2 hours. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Just get it installed. Either way, it's going to be a great process. So let's go through the door and show you the Pro application and then the PHOBIC application here in about an hour. So first step of the process, obviously always shake up your coatings, and then you can just kind of crack the bottle. I'm doing this door just to kind of show you guys. So this is the first panel I'm doing. So I am going to load up my applicator a little bit heavy. So I got my one line there, doing another line there, another line there. It's kind of what we call 3 lines to start, and then you can kind of butterfly that in, and that'll give you enough coating to kind of prime the applicator and get you going for the first application. And then from there on, you really only need a couple drops per section. So with this Pro coating in my environment, we are about 79 degrees in here. So a little warm, it's humid because we just had the door open. We're probably sitting 70% humidity, so not ideal conditions. So for me, I'm generally going to work about a half of a door at a time. Just gives me a nice comfortable working area that I'm not overextending and having to fight with. So Pro is just a very easy install, so obviously I'm going to work that half the door. I'm going to do my X mark on the half just to kind of define my area. Then I'm going to go up through the middle, go around basically all my edges to make sure all my edges are covered. From there, basically I usually just start top left corner and I just circle and just evenly apply all of that coating. And you really want to just make sure you're able to see that coating going on. Make sure you're leaving a nice film build layer. If you're starting to see where it's drying out, then you need to just apply some more to the applicator. But again, it's very simple, and as you can see, it's wet on the surface. That's what you want to see. So from there, I've got my 2 first wipe, second wipe towels ready to go. And in this environment, I can basically just wipe that off instantly. My first wipe towel, usually I go through with just nice, soft circular motions, kind of mimicking the application. That'll get 80–90% of the coating leveled. Not putting any really crazy pressure. And then the second one, this is where we're going to go through. It doesn't really matter how you wipe this one, whether you do circles or straight lines. Generally my process is straight lines, and I'm going through and just knocking down the rest of that coating, making sure that I have a nice streak-free finish. So there you go. There is the application on that half of the door, and then I'm going to go through and just keep going with the rest of the next half of the door. And as you can see, I put probably 8, 9, 10 drops on there for this next section. I don't need a crazy amount. Again, X mark my spot so I know where my application area is. Go around all my edges, making sure those edges are fully covered. I'll overlap a little bit that last section just to make sure I'm fully covering everything. And then from there, top left corner, go through, circle it in, get around all your really tight areas like on your handle here. Make sure the handle's covered. Get back behind the handle, and then keep going with your nice circle application. I'm looking through the light to make sure, again, I'm leaving a nice film build. You can see that liquid on the surface. If it's almost drying instantly, that means you don't have enough coating. You just want to add a little bit more. But as long as you're adding that, you know, kind of 8 to 10 drops per this kind of 2x2, 3x3 section, you're good to go. And I'm just going through, removing that coating. Not really removing it, but leveling it down on that first wipe. And then going through with my second towel here and just getting it all nice and leveled out. And you'll feel that second towel just becomes crazy, crazy slick. Overlap your other section of the door here. Make sure you don't leave any coating. Overlap on your rocker, overlap on your adjacent panels, just to make sure you're not leaving any coating that you push to other surfaces. And that's how you do full application of our Pro coating in a not so ideal environment. So we're gonna basically sit here, we're gonna go around and coat the rest of the car. Should take me about an hour or so, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna show you the PHOBIC application on top of this after an hour, because you do need to wait that full hour, which is a nice process because I can basically just coat the whole car, come right back around with PHOBIC, and you're gonna be good to go. So we get the rest of the car coated, and then we'll show you the PHOBIC application. Alrighty, so we have finished the Pro coating on the whole car. Obviously just kind of going section by section around the car. Super easy experience, even though it's now getting into like 80 degrees here. As long as you do those small sections, you're good to go. So now it's been about an hour and a half. I took a little bit of a break. So we are ready to install PHOBIC on top as our 2-layer system. And again, you're gonna see how easy this stuff is to go on. So I have obviously the sprayer on there. If you wanna put the dropper top and just install it like you did the PHOBIC or the Pro, you can as well. And then I've got, you know, our kind of in development applicator. I think this is super cool because you don't even ever have to put it down. It just straps nicely to you. So I'm just going to go ahead and do some sprays into here. That was a 12, 15 sprays. And on this, I can do a little bit larger of a section, so I'm just gonna work the whole door at one time, which is super nice because then you can go around the car a little bit faster. So I'm just gonna kind of X-box this in, and PHOBIC is not picky on how you apply it, just get it onto the surface. So I'm gonna go around and just get all my edges real quick, and then just going through really quick. And this should, be just as easy as like applying a wax, if not easier. It's almost like applying a spray wax. You're just kind of getting it on the surface. And on top of the Pro, it just goes on like buttery smooth. And you don't need to go too crazy about PHOBIC kind of drying up on you. And then from there, I don't even have to put down my applicator. I grab my towel with PHOBIC. I just use one of our second wipe towels. I almost never use 2 towels for PHOBIC just because of how easy it comes off. And I mean, look at that, like one wipe. Like if you can see here, I don't know if you can get into there, get into here real quick. Can you see that? Boom, gone. Like on top of Pro, they just blend together, and it's just such an easy application. You get that added gloss, that added durability, even increased slickness. The hydrophobicity increases with that 2-layer system. So it's just it's all around just beneficial, especially if you got, a car like this where it's daily driven, sits outside 24/7. That 2-layer system will just be more durable than the Pro 1-layer by itself. So think about that. If you guys are coating your cars and you want the best of the best, what we offer, best of the best, PHOBIC plus Pro, or Pro plus PHOBIC. Just a magical experience. And for anyone, any of you guys that just loves the 2-layer system coatings, this is it. This is what you want. It's just so easy. The second layer is almost just like applying a detail spray. Just keep your one towel, flip it over, go through 2 wipes, and it's just a super magical experience. And it looks amazing. It's crazy, crazy slick. So yeah, that's the application of the PHOBIC. I'm gonna go around and just kind of knock out the rest of the car, and we'll meet you back up for some glass. So we've got all of the paint coated, we've got all the plastics coated. We just went ahead and applied the Pro and the PHOBIC on the plastics as well, all the paint, headlights, taillights. So we are ready to go now into our glass coating. Now, I do want to say, I know we kind of obviously prepped the glass outside using the normal methods as the paint, decon wash, iron remover, panel prep. I don't believe we talked about it, but in order to prep the glass, we also just basically did the same process we did on the paint onto the glass. So we used that microfiber pad and we used a medium cut polish. That will totally prep the glass, even if you had existing coatings on here. That will clean that up nicely and get that hydrophobic coating off, ready for the glass coating to bond properly. So it's just nice because you can just, the same pad and process you were using, just go right over the glass. Makes it super simple, removes removes any water spots, removes that existing hydrophobic coating. So now we can install a fresh layer of coating. Then we just followed through with the panel prep like we did the paint. So again, just kind of same process throughout the whole car, even on the glass. So now we're just going to show you an application on this side window here. Obviously always shake up your coating. On this one, again, just kind of do our basic 3 lines. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. Just make sure you have enough on the applicator itself. Close your top so it doesn't get kind of too much air in there. Butterfly that in so it's nice and even. And then with our glass coating, the best process and kind of my process is just to apply it to the glass, kind of just how we would the paint. So I just do like my slash line down the middle, box all my edges, go through, circle it in. And in our directions, we say that this coating doesn't really require any setup time, so you can just remove it right now, which is usually what I do. We also say that you can leave it for a little while. But I don't find that process, to be as easy. I think the easiest process is just getting it on the surface. Again, it doesn't need that crazy, crazy setup time. You'll notice like some light rainbowing. It'll turn into like a little bit of sweating if you can see there. So again, no setup time needed. So it's just super brainless. You just slap it on and then you can go ahead right away and wipe it off. I just use one of our first wipe towels. So that's all I really use for glass, just a first wipe, kind of like with PHOBIC where I'm just using the second wipe towel, the plushie. For the glass, I like just the first wipe and I'll just flip it over. So again, like it can't literally get any easier than that. I mean, if you see up here, like the residue, up here, it just one wipe and it's gone. So the glass coating is, again, you're getting towards the end of the coating process. We don't want to make it hard for you. We want it to be super easy. So again, you're just wiping that in, leveling that out. Flip that towel over to a fresh side and just buff it to a nice streak-free finish. Make sure you check all your edges. Commonplace on glass is like up in these corners, here, and all these edges is where people tend to leave coating. So just kind of get your finger, up in the towel here and just kind of get all those edges nice and clean. Make sure you got all that coating out of there. You can also roll the window down if you want and get that top edge. But from there, that's it. That glass is now coated. That's one layer of coating on the side glass, which is what we usually recommend. So just kind of go through panel by panel through your glass, get all that glass coated. For the windshield, if you need full instructions, we obviously have a glass coating specific video, but you'll basically do the same process, and we do recommend 2 layers on the windshield, and you can just layer those back to back. Just to give you the best abrasion resistance from those wipers to have that 2-layer process on there. So yeah, we're gonna get all this glass coated up, and then we'll meet you back for final thoughts and kind of go over the whole process and kind of what we did. Alrighty, so there we go. We have finished the full resurrection of an old coating that was beat down and ready for a new application. So we walked you through the full process, the full decon, the iron remover, the clay bar, the polishing step to be able to, again, bring out that paint a little bit, or kind of resurrect it, remove or kind of you know, degrade that old coating, kind of abrade it a little bit so that a new coating can be applied. We showed you the Pro application. We showed you topping it with PHOBIC to give you that incredible gloss, incredible durability, incredible slickness. This thing looks killer now compared to where it started. It is a night and day difference. I mean, this thing's old. Just don't look at the headlights, you know, kind of make, you know, think that those are clear. But other than that, everything else looks killer. We brought this thing back to 2025, where before it was just looking a little bit dingy. So yeah, we're good to go there. We coated all the glass. So that is the process that you're gonna wanna go through if you have that old car with an old coating that you're just looking to basically refresh and get a new coating on there. This is the process. Again, pretty similar to what you would normally do, just starting out with a fresh coating, but just kind of wanted to clear up the air on, you know, I know a lot of people have questions about what this process entails and how to do it. So this is how you're gonna do it. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or anything, you know, always leave them down in the comments box below. I will personally be in there, answer any questions that you guys might have. I know there's probably gonna be some that come up. Again, this is a kind of a deep dive video on how this process works. So again, any questions, leave them down below. I will be there, I'll answer them. As always, if you guys could, like and subscribe. And as always, happy detailing.